You know that feeling, right? That pit in your stomach when a deadline is staring you down, but you would honestly rather do, well, anything else. So let's get into it. Let's really dive into this universal struggle, understand the science behind why our brains do this to us, and actually find a way forward.
Archana Murthy just nails this feeling in her TEDx talk. She paints the picture perfectly. It's late, an essay is due, and her brain immediately kicks into overdrive, finding absolutely any way to avoid the actual work. So, the first detour feels kind of productive. I mean, to write a great essay, you've got to channel the masters, right? So naturally, that means you need to read an entire novel, or two. And that's the genius, sneaky little trick our brain plays on us. It feels like work, but it is not the work.
And then, out of nowhere, it hits her. This sudden, urgent realization, her nails are way too long. I mean, how can she possibly grip her pencil properly? And just like that, a half-hour hunt for nail clippers becomes the single most important task in the entire world.
And this is where it all just goes off the rails. A perfect example of the final stage of avoidance. Pure, unfiltered distraction. After deciding a full workout is what's really needed, she somehow ends up watching cat videos. By the time that's over, it's midnight, and there's still not a single word on the page. The thing is, this isn't just a one-time screw-up. For so many of us, it's this painful, recurring cycle. Murthy calls it a loop that just traps you. And here's what that loop looks like. You put something off, and that immediately leads to guilt. That guilt then creates stress and anxiety. So you rush the work, you feel like a failure, and that awful feeling makes you even more likely to procrastinate on the very next task. It's a total self-fulfilling prophecy.
So this is so important to understand. This isn't about being lazy. It's not about being bad at time management. There is something much, much deeper going on right beneath the surface.
Archana Murthy helps us break it down into two types. First, you've got situational procrastination. Avoiding a specific task you just don't like doing the laundry. But then there's chronic procrastination. That's a much deeper difficulty in starting or finishing almost any task, and it affects a whopping 20% of Americans.
So that really brings us to the core question, doesn't it? If it's not just some simple character flaw, then what is it? What is actually happening inside our brains that makes us actively work against our own best interests?
Okay, let's get into the science, because this is where it gets really, really interesting. It turns out procrastination isn't a time management problem at all, it's an emotional regulation problem. It's a response that's wired deep, deep into our brain chemistry. Psychiatrist Dr. Tracy Marks explains one of the main culprits. It's called the dopamine reward pathway. Think of it like your brain's internal messaging system that says, hey, good job, that felt good, let's do it again. But in people with ADHD, for instance, that system is disrupted. There aren't enough little messengers to carry the dopamine, which means the brain never gets that satisfying reward signal, and that just crushes motivation.
Life strategist Alyssa Smith gives us another really powerful way to look at this. She explains that our primal, emotional right brain, whose only job is to keep us safe, can literally hijack our logical left brain. So when a task triggers fear of failure, fear of what other people will think, the survival brain sees that task as a threat and uses procrastination as a shield to avoid that danger.
Now, this concept from Dr. Andrew Huberman is a total game changer. He calls it the dopamine trough. The idea is actually pretty simple. Any high peak of dopamine, that awesome feeling of accomplishment, is always followed by a painful dip below your normal baseline. Our brain hates that dip. It hates that flat, unmotivated feeling. So to avoid the pain of that trough, it just avoids the effort of the peak in the first place. And that right there is procrastination.
Okay, so we get the problem now. The question is, what on earth do we do about it? Well, the great news is, by understanding the why, we can find the right tools to finally break that cycle. So let's build our toolkit. So Archana Murthy, drawing inspiration from the Bhagavad Gita, came up with a 5-step method. Number 1, set a very specific goal. 2, surround it with positivity. 3, reflect on how you're feeling, good and bad. 4, practice gratitude. And 5, keep a journal to see how you're doing. The whole point is to kind of detach from the final outcome and just focus on doing the work itself. Dr. Tracy Marks gives us some absolutely brilliant brain-based hacks. Since motivation gets a boost from things like interest, urgency, and novelty, you can actually engineer those things. Create urgency with a timer. Add novelty by just working in a coffee shop instead of at home. Or you can try body doubling, which is literally just working alongside someone else.
Just having another person there, even if they're doing their own thing, can be enough to keep you on task.
And what about calming that hijacked survival brain? Alyssa Smith suggests these really simple physical exercises that activate your vagus nerve. Things like just rubbing your hands together and placing them on your cheeks, or crossing your arms and squeezing your shoulders while you take a deep breath. These little actions send a direct safety signal to your brain that says, hey, we're okay, you can let the logical brain take over again.
And get this, here is a wild, counterintuitive strategy from Dr. Huberman. To get yourself out of that flat, unmotivated dopamine trough, don't do something easy. Do something that's safe, but that's actually harder and requires more effort. His number one example? A cold shower. By deliberately putting yourself in a state of discomfort, you force your dopamine system to reset and get back to baseline much, much faster, breaking the procrastination spell.
So what this all comes down to is this. Procrastination isn't a moral failing. It's not a character flaw. It's a biological and an emotional response. And just understanding that is the key to changing everything.
And look, if you've been feeling like you're the only one dealing with this, you are so not alone. Archana Murthy points out that a full 20% of Americans identify as chronic procrastinators. This is a shared human experience for sure. And this, right here, is the ultimate takeaway. It's not about finding one magic trick. It's about self-awareness. Is your survival brain hijacked by fear? Okay, then try Alyssa Smith's calming techniques. Is your dopamine system just not firing on all cylinders? Maybe you can engineer a reward with Dr. Marx's novelty hacks. Are you stuck in that painful motivation trough? Hey, maybe it's time for Dr. Huberman's cold shower. Understanding the why is what helps you pick the right what.
By understanding the root cause, you can stop fighting yourself and you can start working with your brain. You have the tools, you have the knowledge. The only real question left is, what are you going to choose to do differently starting right now?